Welcome, folks. My name is Eddie Carson, and you are chiming in to Race Matters. And like we do all the time, is we're going to lean into the funk and really think about the trajectory of justice work as we talk about matters of culture, race, society, gender, sexuality, politics, all those things that are important, particularly as we lean and try to dissect the nomenclature of the 21st century and the things that are a reality that's here too. And as I get started, before I invite my guest to introduce herself to the show and we really kind of get into a conversation a little bit more, breaking news. And that breaking news, and again, this is pre-recorded, so this will be old news probably by the time some of you folks hear this. Joe Biden just dropped out of the presidential race, and that's something we'll probably talk about a little bit more, and he has officially endorsed Kamala Harris. I actually saw that coming. I don't know about other folks, don't know about my friend Maureen here, so we'll find out soon. Maureen, welcome to Race Matters. Let me give you a second to introduce yourself before we kind of delve in.
Thanks, Eddie. It's really good to see you in person, sort of in person. I grew up outside of Syracuse, New York in the 60s and 70s, and I was introduced to the Church of Christ, which I think we're going to maybe be discussing, when I was about 10 years old in 1963, and I went to Camp Hunt, which is a Church of Christ camp. And my brother, my older brother, also got introduced to the church. He was a little more into it than I was, being, a white male. And I decided when I graduated from high school in 1971 to go to what was then Harding College. And I graduated in 1975. I stayed in Arkansas for a while, living in Jonesboro, and didn't see much sense of staying there because I wasn't a Southerner and part of the community. And so in 1987, I moved to Denver, Colorado, and I've lived here ever since.
I've made a sojourn out to Colorado a few times, and I'm a Southern person. Having attended Harding, lived in Arkansas for a period of time, lived in Texas. Born and raised in Alabama, and of course now, I'm out here in Vermont, which is that's another show, another conversation, something we'll have to delve into a little bit more. So Maureen, over a number of episodes here in Race Matters. For me, I'm a 20th century historian who focuses a lot on American race and religion. And I always find it interesting, particularly to talk to guests when we delve into thinking about society and religion. You attended Harding University, which is a Church of Christ, a Protestant Church of Christ institution, for those who don't know, in Searcy, Arkansas. Conservative then, conservative now, conservative yesterday, will still be conservative tomorrow. What was that experience like for you? And we'll kind of unravel that a little bit more, because I have a slew of things I'm curious about, especially as we let our listeners get a sense of, the challenges of sometimes not being in the quote unquote, like me, mainstream when it comes to conservative evangelical Christianity, particularly under the guise of whiteness, white maleness.
I really didn't know what I was getting into. I kind of at that point was drinking the Kool-Aid, and it was quite a culture shock for me. In fact, when I got down there, some of my friends, my roommates, couldn't understand my accent, which was a upstate New York accent. And I just sort of went with the flow as far as, going to class. And I really studied hard. I did really well. My brother was there at the time. And while we were there, my father had a stroke. And I happened to see my brother at band practice that day, and he had told me about it. But none of my family had told me. It's kind of the place where I grew up, was you just didn't talk about things. And being in a female dorm with very intimate setting. I mean, okay, to be honest, you're like going to the bathroom and somebody's in the shower right next to you. And I kind of had inklings of my sexuality throughout high school. In fact, I can even remember, in fifth grade, I had feelings for women. But again, just the thought of trying to be a Christian when this Christian Church of Christ were telling me that, being gay was a sin and that I was going to go to hell. It was very difficult to deal with the feelings that were popping up as I was 18, 19, 20 years old. And I did have some issues with a roommate, which, now I understand what it was. I was attracted to her. I had a crush on her. At the suggestion of a friend, I went to the psychology department to see a counselor. And one of the first things, after he talked to me, one of the first things he said to me was, "I'm not accusing you of being a homosexual. Like, I'm not accusing you of stealing from your roommate. Like, it's a crime, it's a sin." And I think trying to reconcile being in that environment, which was a very controlled environment, as you know, very well controlled by men and white men, and women in the Church of Christ in general, women have no place except to fill up the communion cups. So that's kind of where I was in college. And, when normal people would be, dating and doing all this social thing, I didn't date one time in college. I just was so repressed that's just where I was.
When you say you didn't date one time, not once at all. I mean, and again, you felt so marginalized and alone and isolated because, I mean, Maureen, let's be honest, there's no way you were the only gay person at Harding University then. And were folks not able to connect? Was there an atmosphere because of the religious norms there where folks didn't want to connect and find each other?
No, I mean, we're talking 1971 and 1975. It's just a total different atmosphere. I mean, um, as students, as girls, we had to wear dresses and skirts, except after 4 o'clock, we could wear pants, but we couldn't wear them to the dining hall. Saturday, we could wear pants, but again, not to the dining hall. Sunday, no pants at all. It was all, dresses and skirts. And just that feeling of, coming, I would go to the downtown church, and we'd all run back on Sunday morning to Petty Cobb, to the cafeteria. And the guys would be like in jeans with holes in them and, flip-flops and everything. And we would be, dressed in our church clothes. Just that feeling of not being seen, I guess. Another thing was that, I came to the Church of Christ late. I was a Northeastern Church of Christ. I didn't grow up in the church. I wasn't spoon-fed everything that these other people, my friends, my classmates, my roommates were being fed of. And for them, I think they just sort of accepted it. But even at that young age and being that repressed, I started really to question what was going on.
When you started to wrestle with that questioning, again, we're talking about, not only your gender, right? As a woman, there's oppression there, particularly when we're talking about evangelical Christianity within the Church of Christ and the limitation towards women. We're talking about, being gay and the what they consider to be outside of their normalities that's there. Did you, and I guess this is a two-part question I'm curious about. One, where are you when it comes to religion and faith today? And two, did you wrestle with that then as you're trying to make sense of this world?
By the time I was a senior, me and I think 4 of my friends were allowed to live in what was married student housing outside of the dorm. And I found out a year later that I wasn't going to be able to live with them because I wasn't, quote unquote, responsible enough. 2 of my roommates went to the Dean of Women and persuaded her to let me live there. But by my senior year, I just stopped going to church altogether. Um, it just, it was just so stifling. I mean, I don't, you've probably been to the big downtown Church of Christ, and it's just loaded with people. And I always felt less than, like I wasn't being seen, I wasn't being heard. So I really stopped going to church altogether. And it wasn't until 1989 when I quit drinking and started going to AA that I kind of reconciled myself to my back to my spiritual side. It's not an organized religion thing. It's just, this is me. This is how I need to live, and this is how I want to live.
Did Over a period of time, did you find that your experiences at Harding, and particularly within organized religion, had an adverse impact on you in terms of how you saw yourself as a human being? And particularly, folks, and I've engaged with other students and other um, colleagues who are in these spaces who've come to me in confidence and said, Eddie, I am struggling because this environment is just stifling me. And I know I'm an amazing human being. I just got to get out.
I did feel that. Again, like I said, being with so many people from the South who were indoctrinated from an early age, and I kind of had more of a questioning attitude towards it. It wasn't something I was that I grew up with, that I was spoon fed. And even though, and I don't know if it was my sexual awakening or what it was, because I never really came out to myself, but I knew there was something going on, that I was different. And looking back on it, there are a few women that I associated with that I'm wondering now, are they gay, or are they, trying to live the straight life, or are they like me? Did they try to kill themselves, and maybe they were, successful, whereas I wasn't?
There's over a period of time, as we know, a number of institutions, particularly conservative evangelical Christian institutions such as Harding, has become, still not the most welcoming or safe place for all folks. Although some of them will open up and say, yeah, we're okay with this. I don't really buy that a lot. I don't know where you're at on that particular positionality there. But, we've seen the networks of LGBTQ plus and allies who kind of engage and talk about that. You're a part of those networks. I'm a part of those networks and everything too. Do you believe those institutions, such as Harding and others, have changed, or it's just not really possible to change, seeing the demographics of folks who kind of make up that world?
The social media platform that you're speaking about has really opened my eyes, because, next year will be 50 years since I graduated. And sometimes I see what some of my more marginalized brothers and sisters are saying about what's going on there. And I'm like, it hasn't changed in 50 years. It hasn't. If you're in that bubble, in that special place where you're just kind of buying into all of that, and you're a woman, just a straight woman even, you're not going to question it because it's comfortable to you. And all of your friends, that are still in the church, you know, are enabling you to feel that way. And it's like, I believe part of that is why there's so many evangelicals who support Trump.
It's right. No, you're absolutely right. I just read something where Donald Trump said there are only two genders yesterday, and really kind of dismissing the identities of a large population of folks who are there. When we wrestle with this conundrum, right, in terms of people wanting to be a part of, be who they are, and to feel um, as they are, because we know there are folks who are queer, who are Christian, who identify as female, and they make their way to institutions like Harding. And one of the pushbacks I get as a defender of folks being able to pick and go and do whatever they want to do and attend whatever institution they want to attend is, why would they go to a place like Harding? And you hear
I
that
get that
stuff all
question a
the
lot.
time. You get that? So can you
Yeah.
comment on that a little bit? Why go?
Well,
I mean, you know what it's like and all of this, and why go there?
partly because I didn't know what it was like. And partly because, like I said, I wasn't fully out to myself. I wasn't aware of what was going on in my heart and my mind. And I mean, I'll say this for Harding, I got a great education, and I have three friends that were roommates that we're still friends today. We never discuss anything about me being gay, although they know that, and I have no reason to hide it. I don't hide it. So I think that I don't know. It's just a sense of, for some people. I know I work at a law firm, and 2 years ago we had a female summer intern who was Black and who was bisexual and had gone to Harding. And I asked her. Well, her answer was her parents would pay for it.
Wow.
You know, and a lot of people, that is it. I mean, especially today with how much it costs to go to a higher education. You know, there's just a lot of reasons, and maybe some people go because they think, this will cure me. I won't be gay anymore. I'll just trust in God and pray, and pray the gay away, as they say.
Is it, do you believe there are folks who really wrestle with this idea of is it worth it, right? I mean, with all the reasons to attend institutions like Harding and others, is it worth the sense of possible isolation, the experience, constantly sitting in class, having folks attack your identity, hearing speakers, all of these things kind of navigating around about you. And again, as a cis straight person, right? I don't know that narrative. The narrative I know, of course, is constantly feeling this sense of isolation as a Black man, as a progressive left Black man who understands the realities of white supremacy and what takes place. And yet to hear folks constantly defend those elements of white supremacy from my lens. Yeah, I can't imagine from your lens or the lens of folks today what it must be like just to sit in space and have folks attack your identity.
What comes to mind is what it would be like for a Black person to have to go to Benson Auditorium all the time. So,
No,
and
just briefly, I'll tell you this quick story. One year, I walked into Benson. We already know the white supremacist George Benson, what he was about and everything too, and then the reluctance to take his name off that building.
mhm.
I remember even in that auditorium, they brought in this speaker who talked about the realities of sin and how people live in sin. And they said, this one speaker said, let me give you an example. There's this woman who got pregnant because she couldn't have anyone else, got pregnant by a Black man and had a mutt as a baby and was rejected by everyone else. I sat there, I stormed up after he spoke and demanded this. I can't remember the name of the student who was over the Student Government Association, some puppet, who wants to, let's just pray about it. Let's not rip open Band-Aids and wounds and
Mhm.
all that. I mean, I was livid over that. I will say, and I'll throw out a shout out to a couple white brothers who stormed up toward the stage with me afterwards to demand an apology. Never got anything in Benson Auditorium. Fitting.
Right. Actually, I was there when Benson was. He wasn't president. But he was there. He was around campus all the time. So, um, but just I think and I hope that young people nowadays are more aware of what's going on in their own lives and in their own beings. That things like that would really, cause a reaction like that. I was too timid. I was too repressed. I was a woman. Um, only thing I remember was in, I think it was sociology class. And I have no idea how this this came up, but it was the talk about masturbation. And if you are thinking about homosexual acts when you masturbate, that's a sin. Now, and there I am, like,
Right.
holy, um, sorry, Ed, that does happen.
Don't apologize what for being human. Oh, don't apologize to me. Absolutely. That when we think about we think about social progress. We think about your experiences being at Harding in the 70s. We navigate to the 80s, for example, and we think about the world we exist in. I live now in Massachusetts and in Vermont. Some of the earlier states where it was much more comfortable to be gay, and that's true. I expect in a lot of other places. What were your thoughts like when we got to Obergefell in 2015?
What's interesting too, because one of the young men, well, not young, but when I was in college, in my yearbook, there's a picture from homecoming, and there's a little boy, Bobby Boaz, giving flowers to his aunt, who was the homecoming queen. Fast forward, Bobby is gay. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago, but he lived in DC, and he and his partner at the time, I remember him telling us, because I met Bobby, about going down to the Supreme Court and just I don't even know how to, I'm getting goosebumps just trying to talk about it, because it's like, I never thought I would see that. I never thought I would see a Black president. Things change, things happen. And the fact that, I can find someone that I love, that I want to be with the rest of my life, and can get married. I mean, that for me, when I was at Harding, that was unthinkable. I would be just like, dig the hole, send me to hell right now. I'm on that chute to hell. And, my kind of a aside, but my niece, my late brother had married a woman who had 2 children. And my niece, when she was in her early 30s, she got engaged to a Black man. And my sister-in-law, who grew up in Bay, Arkansas, one of her friends told her, I just don't think that's right for a Black man and a white woman to be together. And she just went on and on. And finally, Lynn said, well, Hillary's engaged to a Black man. Oh my God. Oh, you must think horrible things. Yeah, I do. I do think of horrible things of you, because it's like, to me, that's the thing. What matters? What does it matter to me what other people do?
Absolutely.
Unless they're hurting me or someone I love, I don't care.
And I love that. I think that's the positionality and the place we need to be. On one hand, I like to think here in the 21st century, we're moving in that direction. And I see a lot of positive signs that we're moving in that direction. Then there are moments where I observe the behavior and attitudes of folks, and I stop, I pause, and I question, are we still living in the 20th century, or what are the ways we continue to navigate through the 21st century? And as we think about being here in the 21st century, when you examine the 21st century, Maureen, is your sense of optimism, is it hopeful? Do you have a sense of concern, fear, disdain for the future? I mean, it is complicated, and the cultural wars right now are all centered around issues of identity.
I was hopeful, especially in 2008 when Mr. Obama became president. And I never allowed myself to think that there would be such a backlash against him. And that's what's happening now. I'm really afraid for my friends, my trans friends. And, like I said, I still have family, young girls living in Arkansas. And I just don't know. I do what I can, and I try to, I don't know, I try to tell people what's going to happen, and people don't believe.
Right.
And I think I have hope that the younger generation and a lot of the people that I've met on that Facebook page, especially the women, I have hope and faith that they can carry it through, even though, I'm a baby boomer and I am so ashamed of how we dropped the ball, because we started out in the 60s, the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, all of these things. And now look where people my age are, what they're doing and what they believe. And they're harming people that I love.
When you talk about harm and you mentioned the state of Arkansas, and in Arkansas is a tricky state, having lived there for a period of time, even when I moved away, I thought, I actually think I miss Arkansas, knowing that the reality for me is I probably cannot live in Arkansas. I'm not even sure I'm employable in Arkansas. You look at my CV and you have a conversation with me. I think that would probably make
Yeah.
people a little nervous because I am radical. I'm intellectual. I know who I am, but I'm all those things because I know how to lean into the important funk of radical love. And, and we know that doesn't exist for all folks. With that said, if you were called to relocate, to move to a southern state like Arkansas or Alabama, places that have not been super kind, but yet we know that there are queer communities in those states where you can mentor, you can develop relationships, you can organize. Would you do that? And I get asked that question. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
I get asked that question all the time.
It's funny because I was in Arkansas for Christmas and, my sister-in-law said, you need to move back to Arkansas. And my comment was, hell no. I don't know if I could. I
Yeah.
mean, if I had specific, like if I knew for sure that this group of people that I knew were going to be harmed, maybe, as it is, like I said, I have young women, relatives that live there, and I would do anything for them. But moving back to Arkansas, I'm not sure is one of them.
I know very little about Colorado. It's not Arkansas. I know that. I do know Colorado's kind of interesting when you look at geographically division between the western part of the state and the eastern part of the state, and particularly where Denver and everything is there too. Has Colorado felt like a safe state for you to be in?
Yes. I've been, I'm out at work. I had no issues at work. It's not like I come out at work. It's just like
Yeah, why should you
it's
do
like I
that
talk
anyway?
about,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't show up to work and come out at work. Like what?
But I've been going to Pride Fest for 30 years, the Pride Parade. And we had it was the week after Orlando a few years ago. And I still felt safe. This year, however, it was not, I did not feel safe. They had the bomb sniffing dogs out. I saw armed police with their riot gear on and their rifles. And, it's like, what's going on? Why? All we're doing is having a good time. And there's a lot of families there, a lot of, parents supporting their kids. And that's really what gives me hope, that the kids today are being taken seriously. There's the old get off my lawn people, never gonna acknowledge that kids can be whoever they want to be. Funny story, yesterday I got a car wash from, I live by Columbine High School, and the Columbine High School band had a car wash. Well, I was a band nerd, okay? So I went, had my car washed, and I could hear these two boys talking, and they had made a bet, because I had a hat on, they had made a bet whether I was a boy or a girl, a man or a woman. And the one that thought I was a man, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. And I said, you didn't offend me. You're just being you and you're being curious, and I think it kind of stunned him because he was embarrassed. But I've been misgendered a lot, and whatever. I mean, you can see my
Hey,
hair.
I
So,
love it. I'm loving it. That's really such a great point that you bring up in terms of how we engage in folks. And, one of the things, particularly among students that I educate, that I engage with, is I try to inform them that, we should work not to misgender folks. We should try to get it right. And mainly I'm talking about my colleagues, to be honest with you. We should try to get it right, understanding that we all make mistakes. And even someone like me who believe that I'm beyond and above making mistakes, and we both know that's not true. That happens, every blue moon, I'll say that. That's there. But yet, as we wrestle with these things here in the 21st century, I and I want to ask you this question. On one hand, I, I always struggle with Black Republicans. First of all, how can you be a Black Republican? I can't understand that.
mhm.
Then I struggle with the idea, well, how can you be a gay Republican? I don't understand that. Then I'm just really perplexed by Black gay Republicans, right? You both flow together and stuff, and I was like, hey, just doesn't make sense to me. Someone help me
Yeah.
figure out what's going on. But as we think about, these issues, these elements here, I'm curious, and that curiosity is this. Within, a lot of people like to, and we've done this, we like to group everyone within the LGBTQ community. And it is not always that neat, as we both know. That being the case, though, a lot of folks believe, hey, we're in the 21st century. If you're gay, you're safe. If you're in good shape, all of these things are going to happen, but it's only the transgender folks who have to fear and worry, particularly in terms of the outcome of Republican politics. Is that accurate, or is that a falsity that folks have kind of professing here?
I don't know. Like I was telling you about going to the Pride. Every year I get concerned because um, my friend that I've known since high school back in Syracuse, we watch the parade together, and we stand right outside the Colorado State Capitol. Colfax is like the main east-west street. And, there's so many people lined up. I mean, it's one of the biggest ones in the country. And I just think somebody could come down, drive down Colfax with an automatic rifle and just let it rip. And I mean, there's that caution part. But then there's also, I can't live like that.
Right.
I have to know that I'm not doing anything wrong by being who I am, and none of these people are doing anything wrong by being who they are. And I do think that we have to have a healthy fear, but not a paranoid fear.
You imagine Harding University having a pride parade, a pride celebration anytime in the near future?
No, I just, I follow Harding on Facebook, and I've noticed a lot of like the Black Students Association, and that's only been within the last couple of years that they've been, putting that on Facebook.
Yes.
So no, no way.
No, it's kind of white, cis, straight, male, Christian, kind of that paradigm that we've seen for a long time, continuing to
Yep.
hold on. Yeah. The reality there too is I don't even know. I think they have maybe one, maybe two Black faculty members. I doubt they have any out gay faculty members. I don't
Mm-mm.
even know, are they allowed? Are you allowed to be gay and teach at Harding?
I don't know. I don't know. When I was there, there was a female English professor, Joe Cleveland, Dr. Cleveland. She was happened to be our club sponsor. Super. I mean, she was great. I loved her. She was smart, and yet she was turned down for the chairmanship of the Department of English. And why was that? I don't know, make your own conclusions on that one.
Did she stick around or did she leave or what?
I don't think she stuck around very long.
Yeah. I mean, I've always thought there have been a couple folks, couple professors there that always thought they stuck around too long. For some reason, people go there and they stick around too long. And I'm talking about folks who shouldn't stick around. I mean, they should go, right, get their feet wet just a little bit and move on, not stick around too long because I'm not really sure it's the right place for them. And some of those
Yeah.
folks are the ones that I really admired quite a bit just because I knew that I could step into an office or I can be in a class and I can say some of the things that I say without being ridiculed for having those views and those thoughts that are there.
Mhm.
So, well, Maureen, as we get to the end here of Race Matters at WJOP, Joppa Radio, I always like to give my guests the last thought. So I'm gonna let you chew on it. Anything you want to wrap the show up with, anything that's kind of, flowing through your soul, your heart, your mind, whatever energy that is, I want to give you that. And for the folks who are listening and everything, I hope you've really kind of leaned in and enjoyed really the narratives that have been shared here as we continue to move forward. For many folks, they're going to say, this is not even a conversation, but this is a conversation. It has to be a conversation because because we're in the 21st century doesn't mean that we've moved beyond, but yet there has been progress. So, my friend, I'd like to give you the last final words to Race Matters.
I think it's kind of what we've been talking about, that everybody has the right to be who they are. And it's not up to me to judge anybody. I don't understand being transgender. I don't. But I don't understand being straight, okay? And I'm not forcing myself on anyone. I'm just here to live my best life. The gay agenda is be happy, don't hurt anybody, and make a difference. So there you go.
Folks, this is Race Matters. Thanks for chiming in. We will see you next episode.